Yo, what up, it's your boy Tix4 here, and today in this video I decided that I wanted to rank all the killers in Dead by Daylight based on how strong their teachables are. Now, these have all changed up. I feel like it's very good to make a video based on this right now, as the meta has been shaking up with teachables. Some killers that will probably surprise you guys are being low is because of the shakeup, and some killers as well are higher than you probably will expect. But yeah, without further ado, let's go. So, in the worst spot, we have Wraith. Now, Wraith as a killer is pretty mediocre as well, but his teachables, god damn, they are awful, they are awful. I will give it though to Shadowborn. Shadowborn is a very nice and smooth perk to have. It basically increases your FOV with 15 degrees. It is indeed a satisfying perk, but it's not good. It doesn't benefit you in any way or form. Maybe you'll get a nice little placebo effect, but that's just it. And then we have the rest of his perks. When it comes to Bloodhound, I guess this could be a very nice perk for beginners that are learning how to track survivors. But all in all, you are never going to use this perk ever once you have like over at least 50 hours in the game. It is practically useless in the most scenarios. There's probably some niche ones, but overall it is very, very bad, and it should be replaced by literally anything else. And Predator is kind of nice on inside door maps like Larry's or maybe even Midwich for some instances. But overall I feel like those are very niche situations as well, and the perk you could basically just put on any other tracking ability and it would be way better. So yeah, Wraith is at the bottom. Next up we got Huntress. Now Huntress is someone who on paper has like kind of mid perks, I would say, but they just end up being terrible overall. Beast of Prey is probably one of the worst perks ever made. For those of you who don't know, Beast of Prey basically gives you undetectable once you get to Bloodlust, but at the end of the day you are not even secure to get any benefit out of it. And getting into Bloodlust is generally a very bad thing. It means that you have been prolonging a chase for too long. And using it to your benefit in a situation where you have already gained Bloodlust will probably end up in the survivor looping you too good even. So you really just don't get any benefit out of it. And Territorial Imperative is also very, very niche. It only works in basement situations where survivors decides to go down there. But the trade-off it gives is just not worth the perk slot at all. It is very, very awful. You could also argue that this is one of the worst perks, but I do believe that once it works, it is kind of okay. But it is very situational, and yeah, I would never use this perk at all. Now, Hex Hunter's Lullaby in general is very, very strong against new survivors. When it comes to rank 1s, it is okay. It can prolong some gen repairs. But it is a hex totem, so it will eventually be cleansed, and then you will basically get no value out of the perk. So at the end of the day, I would say go something else for gen regression instead of Hunter's Lullaby, unless you're trying a fun build. But other than that, I would never use this. Next up on the list we got Oni. Now Oni has one perk that I believe is quite underrated and I feel like is kind of solid in some situations, which is Blood Echo. For those of you who don't know, when hooking a survivor, all other injured survivors suffers from the hemorrhage and exhaust status effect for 45 seconds. That could lead up to some nice snowball potentials. But other than that, we have perks like Sanjin Tactics, which practically can only be used on Blight for benefit, and Nemesis, which basically turns the survivor into the obsession when they decide to pallet stun you or anything like that, which works for some fun, nice builds. But overall, how good they are, I feel like Oni has very disappointing overall teachables. It's not that it's very bad, but it's just that it is very mediocre. You won't get any use of it. I think Nemesis is probably, no, actually Sanjin Tactics might actually be the worst one, because you'll never really get use of it. It is always the survivors leading you to the pallets anyways. But I guess in some situations it could also benefit you if you're trying to predict which way the survivors are coming from. Next up on this list, we got Pyramid Head, aka the Executioner. Now, he has pretty mediocre perks, especially Deathbound. For those of you who don't know, when a survivor heals another survivor for the equivalent of 1 health state at least 32 meters away from you, that survivor will scream, revealing their location and activating Deathbound. For the next 60 seconds, that survivor suffers from Oblivious status effect when further than 16, 12 or 18 meters away from healed survivors. Practically very useless. The effect it gives is Oblivious, which basically does nothing for you. A Forced Penance could probably benefit you in some survivor with friend situations, or a Sabo squad when they try to always take protection hits. But realistically, you will only get benefits of this perk at the end game, and then it's also a small chance that it will actually benefit you in any type of way. And the next perk is Trail of Torment, which I do believe actually is kind of a very solid perk, because it can benefit you by making sure that you'll catch a survivor off guard sometimes. And I feel like paired with some killers like Oni or Blight or Hillbilly, who has mobility that can just go straight around the map after kicking a gen, it is actually pretty useful on them sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. So I feel like that one perk is kind of underrated, as the same with the Blood Echo on the Oni, but the two others, yeah, I don't know about that one, Chief. Next up on this list, we got Freddy, aka the Nightmare. Now, I do believe that Freddy has one of the more fun perks to use, even though they aren't as good as the other killers we will look at later on. But I still believe that we should all give them a try. In some games it is just too fun to use them. And the next one we got here is Fire Up. It basically gives you 4% stackable action speed bonus to things like breaking pallets, damaging generators, vaulting windows, picking up survivors, and it could literally max up to like 20% at the end game. Now this could punish survivors that try to go for flashlight saves, because they will always miss the timing and they will not predict the fire up, and it kind of speeds up the game a little bit, and it makes you feel like you at least gain something from the generators being done. Now the next perk is Remember Me. It is kind of strong, considering that No Way Out is a very strong perk as well. For those who don't know, Remember Me, basically each time the obsession loses a health states, the perk gets 1 token and can get up to 4 tokens. And that will lead up to 16 additional seconds of opening the exit gate. And it is actually quite good. It has become better, consider its synergy with No Way Out. But overall, it's not really that good of a perk compared, and it doesn't do that much for benefit in the late game, but it does more now than it used to do before, so that is, you know, kind of cool. And the next one, we got Bloodborne. We all know what it does, and for those of you who don't know, as soon as the exit gate opens, the auras of survivors inside the exit gate will be revealed, and if you decide to hook another survivor while the exit gates are open, the exit gates are now locked and you can't get out of the match for 60 seconds. It is probably one of the funnest perks to ever use, and once you get value of it, you will literally shit your pants. You will get diarrhea all over the place. I swear to God, the times I get this perk to give me some value, oh my God, guys, it is actually quite fun. But it is very situational, and it literally happens like 1 out of 10 games if you try. So I would not even try to go for it, but if you want to have a fun time, then yeah, definitely use this perk. It's very fun. Next up on this list, we have the Twins. The Twins, as I have already said in my latest video, they are pretty much one of the most unpopular killers at the moment right now, so that means that not a lot of people have their teachables. You could argue that Freddy's teachables are a little bit better, but I'll just go through them. Hoarder basically gives you a loud noise notifications for 4 seconds whenever a survivor performs one of the following actions: 64 meters of your location, either unlocks a chest or picks up any item. And I mean, it is kind of niche. It doesn't work too good in my opinion. It gives you like notification when someone like opens a chest or drops something. I guess if someone goes for a chest build, it's nice, but again, very situational perk. Oppression is probably the best perk right here, which basically once you damage a generator, up to like 3 other generators will also become start to regress, which can be really good in some slugging situations with someone like Blight, for example, or Nurse or Oni. So I feel like Oppression is very good if you can synergize it with other gen regression perks as well. And then we have Coup de Gras, which I personally thought before was one of the funnest perks ever to watch Oddsdarva use. Shout out to Oddsdarva. And basically what it does is that it increases your lunge attack by 80% once you get a token. And you get the tokens by every time a generator gets repaired. Now this is a very difficult perk to use because in some situations you will end up not wanting to use the perk, and you're really just forcing yourself to use it at most of the time. So yeah, I wouldn't say it is that good of a perk, but it's kind of fun. And next up on this list we got the Pig. Now the Pig, in my opinion, has one perk that is really good, which is Surveillance. For those of you who don't know, the auras of regressing generators are highlighted with white, so basically if you kick a generator it will glow white. If the regression progress is interrupted on the generator, the aura will be highlighted in yellow for 16 seconds. That is very good for some gen synergies, especially with someone like Hag, who occasionally needs to protect an area of gens. And it used to be very, very, very good before, but there's other perks that have kind of taken up the spot. And next perk is Hangman's Trick, which basically gives you a notification when a survivor sabos a hook, and you can see the auras of survivors who are within any hook for like 6 meters. And that also is, you know, it's good when it works, kind of, but again, a little bit situational, and really it gives you a little bit info, but you can't really use that to your advantage most of the times, and it's just good if you're going against a Sabo squad. And the third perk is Make Your Choice, which could be argued to be the best perk, especially for someone like Hag as well. I'm seeing now that most of these perks are very good on Hag. But what it basically does is that if there's a survivor hooked and someone comes to rescue the survivor, the rescuer will receive the exposed status effect for the next 60 seconds, which again is really nice for someone that can just punish survivors really quick. Yeah, so overall I think all of her perks are kind of okay, but you could argue that she's either higher or lower on this list. Next up on this list we have the Shape, aka Michael Myers, and he probably has one of the most underrated perks ever, which is Save the Best for Last. I would argue that this is a top 10 perk overall for killers. It is extremely good. What it does is that it basically gives you a token every time you hit a non-obsessed survivor. And then after one token you get a 5% cooldown reduction on successful attacks. So you can basically get up to a maximum of 40%. And also killers got buffed, so the perk also got an indirect kind of buff where it basically gives you more value than it used to do before. So I would put it in the top 10 perks for killers right now. It is extremely good on M1 killers, but the Myers suffers from 2 other perks that are not really good at all, kind of awful. And next one is Play With Your Food, which is basically once you get into a chase with the obsession and you leave them, you get a token, and you can get up to 3 tokens. And for 1 token you get 5% haste, so you can basically get 15% extra haste running around the map. But it's kind of like a setup perk where you basically have to set it up and you have to go out of your way to get usage out of it. So I don't think it's that good. Dying Light is also pretty mediocre, very bad perk in general. Literally just gives the survivors a penalty for repairing, but it gives the obsession a permanent 33% action speed to unhooking and healing other survivors. And most of the time it is just you have to tunnel out the obsession, and but you really won't get any value of this perk. I think it's a little bit of a stupid perk in my opinion. The next up on this list is the Doctor, and the Doctor has 2 really kind of like good perks, but has one that is kind of bad, but it has been synergizing very good lately with the other perks. I'm of course talking about Overwhelming Presence, which basically gives the survivors a 100% depletion rate when they're using an item in your terror radius. But it has been working. There has been some people using this perk for builds like with Colorophobia, stuff like that, to make it very hard for survivors to heal up. And it's not maybe the most beneficial build ever, but it's fun, it's solid, but the perk overall kind of isn't that good. But then we have perks like Monitor and Abuse, which basically increases your tear radius when you are in a chase. But when you're outside of a chase, it's reduced by 60 meters. This is good on someone like Hag. Used to be extremely good on someone like Deathslinger that could basically sneak up and shoot you out. But it is not beneficial to him anymore. But it's beneficial on someone like, for example, Oni, someone that can travel fast, that I have been talking about in this video. Next perk is Overcharge, which basically got a pretty good buff now. It got a little bit reworked, so it's not that bad anymore. And what it basically does is that once you damage a generator and a survivor decides to go and try to repair it, they will be faced with a very difficult skill check, which, you know, was the thing before. But now once you kick it, the regression speed will go from 75% to 200% over the next 30 seconds, which is extremely good if you are in a 3-gen situation or any other situation as well, where you can insta-down and you can like pressure the gens very well. So yeah, both of these two perks, Monitor and Abuse and Overcharge, are pretty good, but Overwhelming Presence just drops both the Doctor very low down. Hopping over to the Cannibal, aka the Bubba, I want to say this, and that is that Barbecue and Chili used to be the most overrated perk ever, but now it's just the most underrated perk ever. It is really not that bad as some people say it is, or just mediocre as some people say it is. They're like giving it like 3 out of 5 stars and stuff like that. It is definitely still a very, very solid perk. And also Franklin's Demise has become way better now that survivors are equipped with medkits all the time, and that there's a huge healing meta as well, and endurance meta. So I do believe that without Franklin's being so good right now, and Barbecue being also very solid, the Cannibal would have definitely fell a lot longer down. And we also have Knockout, which, if we are being honest, not really that good at all. It's solid because you will get the effect of it, but it just doesn't do enough. But I still feel like this is a very solid spot for Bubba. Next up on this list, we have Demogorgon. Technically, he doesn't have any teachables anymore. They basically became the normal regular perks now that you can get in any Blood Web, but I want to take him in, considering that he might come back with the teachables if the leaked news is true. But let's still go over them. We have Surge, aka Joel now. I'm reading this off the fandom page, so I'm just gonna use the old names. And this perk is extremely good now that after it got buffed, where it basically has no cooldown at all. So what it basically does is that once you get a survivor into the dying state within 32 meters of any gen, the gen will get a 8% penalty, and it will start to regress. It is extremely good because you can, once you have synergized it with something like Save the Best for Last, you can keep on knocking down the progression more and more and more and more. If you get some survivors that decides to come in your way and you get like 2 people down, that is still extremely huge. And you don't have to kick the gen or anything. It's just, it comes from you doing what you're supposed to do, killing and downing survivors. And the next is Fearmonger, which is a very, very underrated and solid perk that is very good on someone like, again, only all these top tier killers benefit from this perk, but again, it's not a slot that you would use on them because there are better teachables. But still, Fearmonger basically gives survivors exhausted, and yeah, they get like the exhausted status effect when they are on a gen, and they get blindness as well. And that basically means that they have it for 5 seconds after leaving a gen, and when they are on the gen. So it's kind of hard to just go off it if a killer comes. You have to like kind of prepare for it. And the next is Claustrophobia, or Cruel Limits as it's called. I don't remember the new name now. But it basically, once the generator is completed, all the windows and vault locations within 32 meters of the completed generator are blocked for 30 seconds. Pretty niche perk, pretty situational as well. You'll probably get no usage of it at all, in my opinion. But once it works, it can snowball you out of some situations. I am not gonna lie, but I don't think it is the best perk for that. I think there's other perks like for Trickster's teachables and Blight's teachables. I'm gonna end the video right here, guys. This is just a part 1. There will be a part 2 that will come out later on, but for now we'll just end it right here at the C tier. Next video will start at the B tier, and I managed to go through all the killers way faster than I did in the first half right here, so it will eventually just go as fast as it used to, even though there's more killers to cover. But I hope you guys really enjoyed the video, and I will post a new video very shortly after this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, peace out.